Dentistry in General Radio Network presents the Independent Dental Practice Podcast with Dr. Sonny Spera. In this episode,
welcome to the Independent Dental Practice Podcast. Dr. Sonny Spera, our guest today, Dr. Jokei Alesh. She's fantastic. She's got an indomitable spirit. And we're going to talk about startups, where's her background, how's it going, the mountain of debt she had, and then the mountain of debt she established by doing the startup. It's a very inspiring story. She's a great person. If you want to reach out to her, you can get her at Dr. Alesh, and that's D-O-C-T-O-R Alesh, A-L-E-S-H. That's her Instagram. That's her email. If you want to try her office, it's Marigold Dental Studios. Hope you're going to enjoy this show, folks. Appreciate you for listening. Click like, subscribe, share. Glad to be back on this platform.
Navigating Startup Dentistry, Challenges, Creativity, and Lessons in Leadership. Dr. Sonny Spera interviews Dr. Jokei Alesh.
Welcome to the Independent Dental Practice Podcast. Dr. Sonny Spera getting this show back on the road and having fun doing it. Today I have a really interesting guest. This young lady was someone who we sort of knew each other. She listened to my former podcast on the fee-for-service group, and she claims it actually helped her. So we're going to have to figure out if she's okay, if we didn't warp or ruin her along the way. But it's really, I'm proud of the things that have been happening for her. She had a startup, and we'll get into more of it, but let me give you a little background. Dr. Jokei Alesh, and I hope I pronounced it right. I tried. All right. Dr. Alesh was born and raised in Providence, Rhode Island. At 4 years old, she decided she wanted to become a dentist because of the positive impact of her pediatric dentist. She went on to become a triple jumbo at Tufts University, which means earn a BA in community health, child development, and biomedical engineering. Folks, we are dealing with the brainiac here. This is great. Got her DMD and MPH. She owns Marigold Dental Studio in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Practicing as a general dentist in addition to clinical dentistry, she also serves as an adjunct faculty member at the Community College of Rhode Island Dental Health Program and serves as a member of the Tufts University School of Dental Medicine Board of Advisors and if that's not enough, and Kent Hospital Quality Oversight Committee. She's also an entrepreneur and runs a wedding and event management business, Primary Weddings and Events. I love this. And an e-commerce business selling satin-lined scrub caps. Eliqa Wear, E-L-I-Q-A headwear. She has a profound love for learning, mentoring the next generation of healthcare leaders, and increasing the diversity of the dental workforce. She is a 2015 graduate of dental school. She's had a great path. We're going to get into it. Please welcome Dr. Alesh. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. It feels surreal, actually, because I've listened to you so much.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, this is exciting for me. I feel like a kid again. This is great. There's so many things to talk about, but let's get some of our listeners a little bit of your background. Okay. The 4 years old wanted to become a dentist. That completely. I didn't even read the rest of your. I stopped at that and took a few moments. Talk about the environment you grew up in.
Well, I went to kind of like a health center, like a community clinic and like a Medicaid clinic. And my dentist was just really nice. And I had lots of cavities as a kid. And so just being in an environment where your caretaker is so nice, it just made me want to be like him. And so after my appointments, I didn't want the toys. I just wanted like a pair of gloves. They would give them to me. I would go home and practice on my mom. And I thought of other careers, but dentistry was always, like I always went back to dentistry. So probably like 12 or 13, I got to shadow in a dental office and I loved it. And then when I was in high school, I got to work in that same office that I went to as a child. And that solidified it for me, that this was a career for me.
So tell me about your family. What was your mom, dad?
So I'm from Nigeria. My family's from Nigeria. My mom came here maybe when she was like 20. And then my dad went back to Nigeria before I was born. So we're just me, my mom, and my brother, basically. But I grew up in Nigerian Muslim community. So I never felt really like a void of that I came from a small family. I always felt like a big family because we all grew up together, like as first generation. We call each other cousins. Like I had hand-me-down clothes. We had sleepovers, always together, big family parties. So I felt like I grew up in a really big family, but it's really only me, my mom, and my brother here in the U.S.
Gotcha. How about their educational or work backgrounds? What were they in?
So part of Nigerian culture, I would say, is to be ambitious and get a lot of degrees. So, like, I don't even know any other way to put it. But my mom works as like almost like a health aide for people who are like committed to like group homes and things like that. My brother works in IT, and I always wanted to be a dentist. So that's us.
Okay. So the ambitious part is just basically in your DNA, right?
Yeah,
And the
absolutely.
entrepreneur too?
Yep. So a lot of my siblings, so I have half siblings. A lot of us ended up being entrepreneurs. Like we just kind of sat down one day and was like, wait a minute, do we all own businesses? But I think it's like we just have ideas and we're not scared to like try it. Like me and my brother is an IT professional, but he does like a big festival, like for thousands of people. He does home renovations. Like we're just kind of like creative people and we just try the ideas and see what happens.
So you are not, would it be fair to say you're not afraid of failure?
So not really. It's not that I'm afraid of, I'm not afraid of failure. I don't want to fail, but I don't think it's catastrophic. Like if you fail, like there's just so much time to like try again. Whereas if you don't ever try, you're just kind of in this limbo of never really accomplishing anything. So I think I put my best foot forward. I don't want to fail, but like the failure, it's not like dying. You know what I mean? So I just, I don't know. I don't think it's that big.
It's not fatal, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
All
a
right.
good way. Mhm.
Okay. So got to be some interesting conversations around the table with dinner and stuff with, oh, you're doing this and you're doing that. What was your first venture into a business? I bet you probably had a little stand or something.
I'm trying to think. I don't know as a child that I really did anything. Because even when we would have those boxes, like in school of like the candy that you had to sell, I would eat the candy. Like I was always like in debt to the school for like, the candy. So I don't know that I'm even a good business person, like an early good business person. But like my first real business was the wedding and event management business that I started with, like my final year of dental school.
Wait. You're in dental school and you start up in event management. I mean, talk about the toughest time.
So yes, but it was like just clinic is left.
Okay. All
So
right.
it was, and I was planning my graduation party, and our events are very big. So my graduation party is like a few hundred people in like a really big hall, outfit changes, all this kind of logistics that went into it. And I just realized there wasn't anything in my area that catered to events of that size. And it made me want to say like, okay, maybe this is a good business opportunity.
So basically you're planning a party. You're like, I could do this.
Yeah, exactly.
How cool is that? So who did you lean on? Who was your first advice from? Which family member?
None. So
Really?
that's the thing is like, we don't really talk that much about business. Like if you need help, you can, like me and my brother are the closest because we live here together. So I could ask him for help for things. But we're kind of all just doing our thing and like meeting at some point. But if I have an idea, I just kind of go for it and see what happens. I don't really belabor it too much and too much talking.
Okay, so talk to me. Let's go right into this question.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, what obstacles did you encounter in your venture into the entrepreneurial world?
The list is long. So I'll talk about the dental because I think that would make more sense to everybody. But I didn't know what I was doing. Like I tried as much as possible to do research with podcasts and talking to other dentists as much as I could. I took a startup course that ended up being online because of COVID. But what I know now, 2 years in, and what I knew then, it's like light years away. I would do so many things differently if I knew what I knew now, if I knew how much I was going to struggle. And so hurdles, I think number one, being undercapitalized, not knowing like how much money it would take, how long it would take to become profitable. My break even is $40,000 about, and that seemed reasonable to me at the time. Now I know that's not really that reasonable. And I should have went for some.
Now you know that what?
It's not that reasonable, at least for me.
Not for a startup. In the very beginning.
Exactly. And so certain things that like, I think comparing apples to oranges in terms of like what my dental office could do and what established practices were doing, I needed to know what other startups were doing. And like, I was in a Facebook group with other startups and I have some friends who did startups, but the comparison just wasn't correct. Definitely lots of things that I know now that I did not know when I was starting out.
All right, so we're talking startups now. Well, no, let me ask you that question right now. So prior to doing your own startup, what environment were you working in? And then what kind of things were you trying to learn?
Yep.
And then lastly, was a startup always on your mind or did you evolve into that?
Okay. So basically, I graduated from Tufts in 2015. Lots of lessons there as well. Like I graduated top 10% at Tufts. Like I did well in school. But if I had to do school again, I wouldn't have done it the way that I did it either, because I came out of school. My goal was always to become a dentist. That was my goal. I never made any plans for what happens after you become a dentist. So I didn't have any life goals, financial goals. What do I want? Where do I want to live? None of those things were spelled out. And I'm really good at following a plan, but there was literally no plan. So when you don't have a plan, people move you to their plan and their needs. And so when I graduated, I didn't know, since I did my MPH, I still had one more year left of my MPH. So I had my degree, but I was still at Tufts for one more year. So I started working as a dentist. And then at that point, it didn't really make sense to me to go back for a GPR AAGD, because I'm like, I've already been working for a year, but I was working at like a private practice that there wasn't like much mentorship. Like you just came in, saw patients. It was like a Medicaid practice. And so if I could do it again, I would do an AAGD or GPR.
So like another year of dental training.
Yeah, like focus with mentorship. Mm-hmm. So from then I just started working, and I started working at a community health center. I worked always at a community health center and then part-time private practice to keep up some of the private practice skill set. And I was just winging it as a dentist, and what my patients needed, I figured out how to do it efficiently or effectively, but not like a clear path of like what kind of dentist I want to be or what I wanted to be doing. So this was in Massachusetts. I got married, I moved to Rhode Island, and I started working at a health center that fit the idea of what I thought a community health dentist would be. Like, we had everything we needed, served our patients very well. It was a wonderful environment. And I was still trying to find that private practice fit. So 3 days community health, 2 days private practice. But I couldn't find a private practice that I loved, like how I loved my community health center. And it got to a point where I was just like, I can't keep doing this. Number one, I wasn't making any real money as a dentist, like not really being able to pay my loans or make forward motion in my financial goals that I now had. So I was just like, okay, I think I just need to open my own office. And so that's when I started kind of preparing. It was also 2021, thinking about like, what does it look like for me to buy a practice? So in Rhode Island, I looked at like a bunch of places that I could buy, and none of them really were the right fit. Either I didn't have enough operatories, or the seller said they were ready to sell, but they weren't really ready to sell. So I couldn't find one. And then it got to a point where I was just like, okay, I think I'm just going to have to start up. And so then began the process of looking for spaces to start up. I found the space that I really wanted. And I don't remember what the question was, but that's how I ended up doing a startup.
So what kind of debt service were you in when you graduated?
So I want to say, I had 50,000 from my MPH, I think. And then I think 250,000 from dental school, or maybe 200. It was either, now with the interest, like how it's just my balance is always growing, but it was somewhere around there. So maybe 250 or 300,000 when I graduated.
Okay. Now, what did your MPH degree do for you?
Not much. So again, I would do it differently. I wouldn't have gotten an MPH at Tufts. I would have went to a school that had the focus area that I wanted. So my focus is on workforce development, workforce diversity, and Tufts doesn't have any professors that are focused on that. So a master's degree is really so much about the network that you're creating, the connections that you're creating. It has nothing to do really with grades. Like, everybody gets good grades in your master's program. It's not about that. It's about how you grow professionally. And so going to a program that doesn't have the professional network that you need is pretty much a waste of time. So not much.
Okay, what were some of the things? You said there's some things that you learned you'd have done differently. Let's get into the startup. So your startup, and you're about $300,000 in debt, and the way that you pay for it, probably haven't chipped much away at that principal at this point, right? So we're 10 years, almost 9 years outside of school, and you've still got this burden. Now, what was it like when you were looking at doing a startup and still having that debt? I mean, what was it like going to get financing alone? Just talk about that process.
So I guess the debt didn't worry me too much, because it wasn't going to go away with the way that I was currently practicing. Like, my community health center salary was not going to get that debt away in a reasonable amount of time. So owning my practice felt like the only way to actually be able to make the money. Like, first, owning your practice is like, okay, you want to own your job first, and then it becomes a business, right? And so I wanted to own my job and own my income first. And so the debt was bothersome when I had this stagnant salary. If I would have been able to find a private practice that I could grow with, then maybe I would have stayed in that situation because I would have had a private practice that I was making money off of production or whatever it was. But that wasn't the situation for the private practices that I was finding. And so it didn't feel like I was taking a leap. Like what I was doing wasn't working for the amount of debt that I had.
So what in your private practice experience leading up to your purchase?
Yeah.
Give me like one or two things that you really learned that has helped you to this day. What are one or two really key things that you just
clinical skills, mostly learning how to place implants. That has helped me a lot because I wouldn't have learned that in a community health center.
So increase your skill set there.
Yep. And then managing staff. So I have lots of guides and protocols. Everything's written down because anytime I would enter a new practice, you're retraining a group of people for the way that you practice. And how do we make sure things don't get lost in like the communication tree? And so how do I translate the treatment plan that I gave to a patient to what the front desk does? So those kind of systems that I had to create in private practice, I still use now.
I want to repeat that, the communication tree. Just give me a little flavor of what the private practice was in terms of its size.
So this one,
because people I think in small practices make the mistake. Well, that's more of a big practice thing. It's just these other two girls or these other, you know what I mean? But what was the size like? What was the practice that you were working in?
So this one had 2 or 3 front desk women, people. And then at any time between 3 and 4 doctors. The days that I was there, I was usually the only doctor.
Oh, that's a large group then. That's 3 or 4 doctors. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, depending on the time. But it was like me and one other doctor mainly there every day. Like one person came on Saturdays and the owner came in sometimes. So that's like makes the 4. And then I want to say it was 5 operatories and 1 hygienist.
That's not a big office.
No, it wasn't a big office.
So, but think about what you said, right? The communication tree. I think that was something that I had to learn too.
Yeah.
You know, coming from a practice, there was 2 other doctors and they were this was my associateship. Each of them kind of had their own practice. They brought themselves together. They had a partnership. One was on the 2nd floor and one was on the 1st floor. And here's me. I'm kind of a little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah.
You know, but they're definitely, I mean, you just called out the elephant in the corner, like that there is a communication tree. I mean, my office is ridiculous now with, we're 70 plus, 5 locations and trying to keep track of all that.
Yeah.
That's why that hair turns gray pretty quickly. But it's so important to have these systems. And you think about it, I asked you, what are the top 2 things? One was to increase your clinical skills. The second thing was to be a better communicator or create better systems. One and the same.
Yep.
And I think that is so important that you nailed that, because that is going to help you be more productive in the end, because you're going to have a better running, or better, like a well-oiled machine, like they say. Right?
Yeah.
So when you're going to look to buy the practice, let's talk about that now. You found the spot you liked. What's the next step you did to garner or get the financing, or did you have financing in place prior?
So I had financing in place prior. I wanted to see like how much I would get approved for. So the financing wasn't hard to get because when I graduated from dental school and I started learning about personal finance, like I got everything in order. Like my credit was good. I had a good savings rate. I was always super frugal once I started learning about personal finance. So that part wasn't hard to get. The loan, I got it from Bank of America.
But what does that look like? You walk in, you have some work history.
Yep.
Now you're going to ground zero, right?
Yep.
So talk to me, like I'm the bank officer, you walk in, what's that conversation look and sound like?
So one bank wanted like my production, and I couldn't really give them that because I worked in a health center. Like there isn't that production. Like I got paid a salary. Bank of America didn't really ask for that. They just wanted how much I could produce, I guess. And then my tax returns, my personal finance statement, which has like, I own my own house, your car, how much you have in savings. That's all they really wanted to know. And then once, right? Exactly. And once I gave them that, and like I didn't have any credit card debt either. So I think they just wanted to see that, like, all right, the money that you get, how much of it are you spending or how much are you saving? And basically, can you produce enough dentistry to manage a loan that we're about to give you?
So wait a second. So you sat there and you said how much you can produce. And so you have to have like a fee schedule. And then do you get into that depth? Like, okay, listen,
no,
if I do
not really.
I
don't think it was that. They didn't go that deep into it. It was more like, you've been working as a dentist. Because at that point, I'm like 8 years out. So maybe if I was 2 years out, it would have been more important. But I think at like 8 years out, they just trusted like you can do dentistry. But I'm not 100%
I would agree. Don't you think it's a lot less risk? Yeah.
Right. So I think they just trusted like, you've been working for this amount of time.
All right. So give me your advice. I'm walking in as a startup.
Yeah.
I'm 3 years out of school. I'm a little green, right? What would your advice be? How do I dress? How do I look? How do I talk? What do I do to prep? Give me some
The first thing
startup 101.
is pile cash. Like, I don't care how you got to pile it, pile it. Like, cash is literally king. When people say that, I so get it now. Like, you can figure it out for as long as you want, as long as you have the cash to sustain your business and your life. Once you run out of cash, like literally it stops. Everything stops. So piling cash. And then when it comes to dentistry, it's like I knew how to be a community health center dentist, and I kind of knew how to be a PPO, private practice dentist, but I wasn't that great at it because it didn't suit my personality, right? I didn't really know how to be a fee-for-service dentist or out-of-network dentist, but I knew I didn't want to open either of the other two options, so I opened out-of-network. And so knowing your practice type. So I think to be a community center dentist, you just need to be able to do whatever's on your schedule. You need to be able to move fast. You need to be able to do lots of extractions, lots of big fillings, removable. I think to be a PPO dentist, you need to be able to move really fast. Again, you need to be able to see multiple chairs of hygiene. You need to be able to produce a lot in a day. To be an out-of-network dentist, there's a certain skill level that you need to have that I didn't have and I didn't know that I didn't have, right? And so if I was telling someone now, take the CE for the type of dentistry you're looking to practice and knowing how to be efficient with a schedule. I had no idea how to be efficient with a schedule. Community health center, like if you do 2 fillings for an appointment, that's fine. In private practice, that you need to do more to make it make sense. And so I think just number one, conserve cash, pile cash, even lines of credit, credit cards, make the balance, not the balances, what is it? The maximums, I think, as high as possible, but just have your cash position be really high, and then figure out what type of dentistry you want to practice, and then either go shadow that type of person, see how their schedule is stacked to be productive, and work your knowledge base and CE to be able to get there. Those are the 2 things.
You said it fit your personality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the words you use for the out-of-network practice?
Yeah.
Why? What was it? What was the allure to being out-of-network?
So I started working in dental offices when I was 16. So I've been in a lot of offices. And the insurance game, it just always seems
Stop
insane.
right there. Just say those 2 words again.
The insurance game?
Yeah, just the fact that you refer to it,
yeah,
because it really is. You have to understand the game. Travis Campbell talks about it all the time.
Yeah.
You got to understand the rules of the game.
Right.
And then then that sort of dictates how you practice.
Right.
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 I was fortunate enough I never did that.
Yeah.
But I get it. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you. Keep going.
No, you're fine. And so the insurance game just always seemed insane to me. It seemed like it just took so many people to manage $1,000 conversations, $1,500 conversations. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Like a whole person's salary for $1,500 for one patient, it's just not adding up for how much work has to go in to try to squeeze that amount of money out of a person's insurance benefits. And I knew I wanted to have like a practice that did dentistry at the highest level. Like I aspire to be the best possible dentist that I could be clinically. And so I wanted a practice where it wouldn't be that I have to fit my choices into how much insurance reimburses me. And so I knew that that wasn't the path for me. I just didn't know that I didn't have the skill set yet to command the fee-for-service type dentistry. So that's something that I've had to grow into. I've been forced to grow into it. I wouldn't have grown into it any other way.
So what were some of the communication skills that you needed to develop, because you talked about that prior, especially in your out-of-network practice? What were some key points?
So definitely just treatment planning comprehensively, like look at the whole mouth, the whole person. I always met people where they are because that's part of community health dentistry. But in community health dentistry, like if something's not bothering the person, you just kind of leave it because there's always so many bigger fires to put out. But in my out-of-network office, a lot of people don't have these huge fires. You need to solve more so lifestyle problems, I would say. And so talking to people about how can I create a solution for the problems that you're bringing to my office, and not being like, okay, you could do this, but if you don't have money, you could do this. It's instead of just being like, all right, this is what's going on, and the best solution is this. What do you think? And letting people, answer you, as opposed to like, counting their pockets or assuming that they can't do it.
Where did you learn these skills?
just by talking to patients over and over. I haven't really taken anything specific on communication.
Do you have any people or mentors or, avenues or?
Not really. I have colleagues, I guess you would say, and I've shadowed quite a few people, but no one that I can say is my mentor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're learning the old-fashioned way, hit and miss with things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Do not recommend.
I'm sure you'll say in 2 years, you probably had more misses early, and
Yeah.
then you've morphed into doing more hits, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So talk about when you did the startup,
Hmm.
what would you do a little differently if you did it again?
So if I had to do it again, I would
Let's
consider.
talk about a couple things. Let
Yeah,
me throw a couple things out for you.
sure.
Let's just talk about your physical plant. How many rooms did you lay out?
I have 5. 3 are equipped.
Okay. So
Hmm.
you designed an office for 5 operatories,
Hmm.
which is very good for a single practitioner.
Yeah.
And you plumbed and piped. How about what you purchased in terms of equipment? Would you do it differently anyway? I mean, talk about that.
So I think I would purchase everything. I got pretty good deals on my equipment. I only bought 3 chairs, and I would do my equipment the same. The supplies, I wouldn't use a big supplier again. I would have got way more stuff on Amazon and like disposables from like Net32. Like I wouldn't have done it, all that stuff through a big supplier.
Okay. So essentially looking back, you're happy with your equipment purchases,
Hmm.
everything down to your suction, your
Yeah.
compressor, right?
Hmm.
All those
Yeah.
things. How about computer system? Did you go right into that?
So my brother's in IT, so he did my IT bill. So yeah, no,
That's a
I got a
no-brainer.
deal on that. I definitely got a deal. Got a deal
Okay,
on
so
that.
he helped design your system.
Yeah, and I got like my TVs on Black Friday. They were in my house for months. Like I was pretty frugal on the things I knew to be frugal on. So that stuff
How about
worked
the
out
actual
well.
software? Did you know what software you were going to pick?
I did Open Dental, and I knew that from like Facebook groups and stuff, like dental startup Facebook groups that a lot of people do that. And Open Dental has honestly been great. Their customer service is top of my
Very
list.
happy with that. Okay.
Yeah.
Because
My cabinets, though, worst decision of my entire build out. It was terrible. I went with a custom cabinet maker, and they were just terrible. They held my project back for 5 months. Yeah, I was supposed to open.
this is your dental cabinets, or is this your front office cabinets?
So I ended up getting pre-made for the front office and the kitchen, and just got like a handyman to install them. So that was fine. But my dental cabinets were custom, and nothing else could be put in. Like the chairs couldn't be put in until those were in. Like so, it just held up everything.
Okay. So now that they're in, are you happy you got the cabinets, or can
They're
you?
terrible. They broke immediately. Like no, literally the worst decision. I don't have many regrets in life, but that if I could do that over, I would not do that.
How much did you spend on cabinets? I'm going to guess it was an arm and a leg.
It's an arm and a leg, but I don't remember. I think because it's the cabinet and the countertop, and in the front I did like a waterfall
Sure.
countertop. So maybe everything came out to like 14,000.
Okay, that's not terrible at all.
Yeah,
What,
and
what was,
I put the cabinets in all 5 rooms.
so what was your startup look like? What was the amount you were borrowing to do the startup?
I think at the end it came out to 700 something.
So 700 was borrowed.
Hmm.
Did you have to put X amount of down payment down?
I don't think I had to put any down payment. I ended up using most of my savings though, because the like how it was delayed, different things. Like I had to come up with money to like fill some holes. And the money that the bank gave me didn't include rent. And my rent started before I was open because of how delayed things were. So I had my rent and my staff started months before I was even open.
Okay, we're just going to get to that.
Yeah.
So you've got the financing and the loan set up for
Hmm.
700,000, right? And you have the site, right?
Yeah.
All right. Talk a little bit about, did you negotiate the lease? How did you go about, attaining that? And then was there any wiggle room
Yeah.
on either side of that?
So I work with Car Realty, and they negotiated the lease. I don't know what that means, truly. I don't know what room there was to negotiate. I don't know if it was negotiated well, because my rent is like 6,000 something a month. So I don't know what happened there. I worked with some lawyers who we had to negotiate the actual written lease, and
Yep.
the negotiations, I want to say, took like 6 months of lawyer fees. My lease is probably 40 something pages long. It took forever. I think I started the process in March and didn't get a lease until October. Something crazy. It was just really long. I don't remember it exactly now, but
Okay,
it
so
took a long time.
So you mentally commit March, but you're not really signing any papers.
Exactly.
Now, so you don't really proceed doing anything, right, until you have that lease in hand, right?
So I already got like the contractors. So I was interviewing contractors to see who I would pick. So we walked through the space, and in my lease, they had a certain amount of time to. It was a fitness studio to demolish all the stuff so I could start. And I didn't think to not give them that much time because in my mind, I'm like, okay, as soon as I sign it, they'll get rid of that stuff and I'll be able to start. I think they took 3 or 4 months to demolish everything. So when I was supposed to start the construction, it still was a fitness studio. So I signed the paperwork with the contractors before I got my lease signed.
Wow, it's a leap of faith.
It was good though because it locked in a price, and the way pricing went up so high for construction materials, they didn't raise my fees. So it ended up being in my favor I think that was in 2021. We didn't start working until 2022 sometime, and we didn't open until 2023.
How did you get your leasehold improvement plan together? Like you said, you locked in the price. That means you had to say, this is going here, that's going there. You had to have it all specced out, right? How did you do that?
Yeah, so they came and we walked through everything. I knew what I wanted in terms of design, where I wanted things. I worked with Benco a bit on the plans, and then that contractor also referred me to an architect who like actually made them legal. So just deciding like, okay, what chairs do I want and where do I want things to go? But it wasn't that hard to come up with the design.
But did you have the ability to put rooms wherever you wanted? Like, did you have open, or did you have to work around certain restrictions, like as far as how the space was laid out?
Nope, the place was open, completely like just a box. But it was a lot of going back and forth with people telling me like, this place can only fit 3 rooms. It has to be like this. You should put the bathroom here. And I would just slowly like inch like, oh, what if we move this? And what if we move this? And then that's how I got my 5 rooms. So I had the vision that I was going to have an office with 5 rooms. And I just had to kind of guide everyone else to that conclusion.
So did you do that by meeting with Benco, or did you do that with your paper and pencil? Did you do that on a computer? How'd you do it?
A bunch of things. So I got the layout first from the landlord, and then I just kind of drew in there. And then I went on like Fiverr and had someone like sketch it for me, sent that to Benco. I ended up going on a visit to Benco in Pennsylvania, and we sat with the architect there.
Yeah, I know where you went.
Yeah, so that was cool. And then the architect, through the contractors that they have with them, we finalized it too. We did walkthroughs. Like my brother came. We did a lot of planning before actually starting the construction, and we had time to. So my contractor also like they came and they like spray painted on the floor. So we walked through that just to make sure we were happy with everything before we started.
How are you managing your job when you're doing all this?
So I was working 3 days at the health center. So now I didn't have I left my private practice.
You left the private practice.
And so I had those 2 days thinking I was about to have my practice soon, not knowing it was going to be a long time. But yeah, so I had those 2 days a week that I could work on the practice.
So you said your BAM, right? Your BAM number is 40,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So how long did it take you to reach your first month where you were?
We're still not there. In 2 years in. Yeah.
2 years in, still not there. So how are you? Are you still working in the health center? How are you doing this?
No, so I took a leave of absence in March because I was just overwhelmed. Like either I was going to have to sell my practice or like close my practice or just go full time to my practice. Like there was no continuing to do both because the days that I wasn't there, like things weren't moving the way that I needed them to move. Like we weren't growing the way that we needed to grow. So I just kind of had to burn the boats and be like, well, either I'm going to lose everything or I'm going to go in here full time. So that's what I did in March of last year.
So March of 2024, you went full time here.
Yep.
And the entrepreneur in you is going to be, you're going to make it.
Amen.
So what are you doing, or what did you do to get from 0 to wherever you've gotten to? I mean, you had to have a kind of aggressive marketing strategy or something, right?
So in a way, so while I was in my startup, like I've seen this on other startup podcasts and stuff, people who like film everything that they're doing. So I did that. Like I filmed like had a videographer come, different parts of the process. When I was picking my chair color, like, you know, involving people, what do you guys like, that kind of thing. And so with that, I had a waiting list. And so when we opened, we had like 100 and something people on the waiting list. that were interested in joining the practice. So my staff had people to call right away. The issue is that we didn't have that verbiage for what does it mean to be out of network. And a lot of people were just like, you don't take my insurance, like I'm not coming. So I definitely think the easier way would have been to just be in network with everything and have Medicaid. Like I wouldn't be struggling how I'm struggling now, but I'm just committed to this vision of what kind of dentist I want to be. And so that's how I'm here.
So what have you seen? Have you seen ups and downs? I would assume you have, right?
Yeah, definitely ups and downs. I think if I can get someone into my practice, they do love the experience. They love the customer service. They love how we take care of them. It's people who have anxiety are like, wow, I've never experienced something where like I'm not anxious at the dentist, but making that conversion. And then for some people, it's like, when they get the treatment plan, it's just too much money for them. And so trying to offer financing and what are those conversations like? Excuse me.
So what does your team look like? What size team you have?
So right now it's changed. It's always changing. I swear I've been training for 2 years, training and firing and hiring for 2 years. But currently I have 2 at the front desk. I have 4 assistants. One is part-time. One just started yesterday. And so she'll be part front desk and part back office. I never really want to have dual people, but I'm finding that I just need a person who can do both. And then I have a hygienist and myself.
How have you seen your hygiene schedule grow?
So I don't know. I wasn't ready for a hygienist when I got a hygienist. It's just so hard to find a hygienist that I knew that if I ever wanted to have a hygienist, at that time I wouldn't be able to find one. And so she was my assistant while she was in hygiene school. And so when she graduated, I just said I wanted her to come on as a hygienist. So she's there for 4 days a week, mostly booked, but not really because I'm not fully booked. So some of those days I could have been seeing those patients. But yeah, it definitely allows me to be more productive when she's in the office.
How many patients does she have to see a day to cover her expenses?
Okay, just do some quick math. Let's see.
4, 5?
Maybe 2 or 3.
2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because we get our full fee.
All right. So if you had a patient in the morning, patient in the afternoon, so your risk having her there is minimal.
It is. And she's my assistant also. She can assist me because she started as my assistant. So when someone calls out and her schedule's empty, she jumps in and assists me. I don't have to find someone to assist me.
But you said you had 4 assistants, right?
So I had someone just start. So basically my main assistant is the most unreliable person and there's no way around it. And so I've had to just create so many systems around her life. And I know that sounds crazy, but I've tried to hire someone else. I've tried to train other people and I just haven't found anyone that can replace her. So I have someone who comes part-time on the days that she's not there. So they kind of make up one assistant. And then I have another person who not just started, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, who I wanted to train to become my assistant, but I just don't think she will get there. She's mostly helps with breaking down rooms, steri, setting up trays. But yeah, I don't know that she would be able to be my chair side. And then the new girl who just started, because my front desk person who's my best front desk currently is probably going to leave soon because she wants to be in another city doing another career. And so I just knew I needed to hire someone who could do front and back in anticipation for when she leaves, because we just don't know when it's going to be.
Gotcha.
So we're just not settled. And I'm looking forward to the day when it can be more predictable. But right now it's everything's in flux.
So what are some of the things that you're looking forward? I mean, are you looking at your schedule, what you got booked? I mean, you got to be paying pretty close attention to your bottom line then, right?
Yep. So right now it's really just I take things day by day. There's no other way that I can do it. I try to just take the best care of the patients that I have at the time. And that's what I tell my team. I don't care if we have 2 patients on the schedule, they need to have the best experience because we're trying to grow and we're trying to have a brand that is reliable. And I'm now focusing more on my chair time and how can I be as efficient as possible with the time that I have? So when I bring patients in, yesterday, okay, someone came in for a new patient exam. They need 1 filling. I'm okay, do you want to do it now? I wouldn't have said that 6 months ago. I would have been okay, well, go ahead up front and make your appointment for 1 filling, And so I've had to change a lot about how I think about what makes sense and how to use my chair time. It's just better to do things. If the patient, she's like, yeah, I took the whole day off for this appointment. So I wouldn't have even known that 6 months ago. I wouldn't have asked. So trying to grow in those ways to be more efficient.
Yeah, it's the here and now, right? Dollar done today is a lot more, done a week from now.
Exactly.
And you sell the convenience of it, right? Save
right.
a trip. Oh, geez, no gas, no this. So it sounds like you got to supercharge your patients to make sure that they're out there, helping grow the practice, right? So your best referral sources, it's almost like you got to really plug into them and get them, shaking for you.
Yeah, sure. How would you do that?
Well, we have a little thing that we call, and we actually copied this from Steve Rasner. He talks about it. Send someone you love to someone you trust, right?
Okay.
So, and we offer, I think it's either $25 or $50. I can't remember. It's probably $50. $50 credit towards that person when they show up. So in other words, if you send your neighbor, if you send your husband, boom, you get a $50 credit on your account. And that's just a way to try to do that. And the second thing is just ask them.
Yep.
Mike Abernathy talks about this a lot in terms of, his communication. They see a patient, he'll send a handwritten note or he'll call them and say, everything went well. I really appreciate seeing you. Or in his little notes, say, is anybody you think of that can benefit from our services? We'd love to have them. But it's got to work for you, right? You got to be comfortable in your skin doing it. Yeah. And I think that's a really nice personal touch. How many times you get a handwritten note in the mail?
Not often.
Yeah, almost never. Right? Yeah. So
maybe Christmas.
That stands out, right? But that stands out. So I think you gotta increase your outflow. Increase your inflow, right? So you got to increase your communications. The more personal I think you can do it, the better. Those are just a couple things. Calling patients after procedures, how they're doing, that. All that stuff. And then, Bob Pick does a nice little thing. He makes a little video. So if you take a tooth out on a person, he sends a little video, you and your assistant, hey, a couple reminders, remember, be biting on the gauze, put pressure, but, being in their, kind of in their immediate front. Yeah. And I also think new patients are the most likely to refer because they're new and, nothing wrong with, hey, happy to have you. And could you benefit from us, what we do? Love to see them. Okay. So it's going to be really fun. We're going to have a follow-up conversation. We're going to wrap it up shortly here, but follow-up conversation. We're going to find out how well you're doing. Amen. How well you're doing, not if you're doing. Yeah. Find out how well you're doing. And that's like your follow-up calls, calling to see how good you're doing, how you're making out. Yeah. That's calling to see if you're having any problems. Problems, boom, triggers. Oh yeah, versus it's a mindset, right? It's those little things. You learn along the way, So super. Any last things you'd like to share with any of our listeners? I really appreciate you coming on.
No, this was great. I feel like I've listened to this, not this particular show, but you so many times that it just feels great to be on the other side of things. I think it's just, even though my journey hasn't been easy, I've committed to taking really good care of myself, taking good care of my patients, and taking good care of my staff, and it hasn't failed me yet. So, if you are looking to try something, do it with a positive mind and take good care of people, and things should be fine.
Fantastic. Now, if people want to get in touch with you, would you like to share any of that information? I know I have your email, but do you want to give them your office email or office phone? Sure. Or would you like people to reach you?
So I'm Dr. Alesh on everything, DOCTORALESH on Instagram.
Hold on a second. You're talking to a 6-year. I have no idea. You just said that.
Doctor, wait. Like spelled out.
Dr. Alesh. Yeah. ALESH. Okay.
Yes. On Instagram is the easiest way to contact me. Email, I also respond to email very quickly. That's dralesh@gmail.com.
So it's DR or do you spell out doctor?
DOCTOR.
On all, even
on everything. Yeah.
Okay. So Dr. DOCTOR, Dr. Alesh on Instagram at Gmail. Great. Do you have something like an office or do you want to share?
Yeah. So Marigold Dental Studio. I don't know if you want the phone number. I don't know what anyone to call the office for, but you could reach me by email. Probably the easiest thing.
Okay. So, well, hey, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate talking to you.
Likewise.
You have my number. You can reach me anytime. I'll be happy to do whatever I can to help you because I've sort of been in your shoes, not exactly startup, but I remember going out on my own and I remember first 2 or 3 months at the end of each week going, do I have enough lunch money for next week? I mean, did I pay all my bills? Can I make payroll? You know, and I think if your vision is strong enough, which I'm sure yours is, and your work ethic is there, where I ain't no doubt about that, it'll fall in place. You just got to figure out a couple of things along the way.
Absolutely.
And if you do have some friends that are in it, I mean, that's the power of either, you can call them mentors or colleagues, you know, people that you can call so that you can learn from their experiences, you know, people that are willing to share freely.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks again. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
This has been a production of Dentistry in General Radio Network. Visit our website, dentistryingeneral.com, to join engaging clinical and business conversations, explore our dental podcasts, and stay updated on our upcoming live event.